Fight Mike here. Today we're going to be recapping the UFC 318 card that just took place in New Orleans, headlined by Dustin Poirier and Max Holloway. It was a fantastic card overall. There was a bunch of finishes on the prelims and some wars on the main card. So let's start off with the early prelim opener. We got Nicole Cagliari versus Carly Judice. This was a pretty good fight, actually. Nicole Cagliari looked improved from her last performances. I've always thought that she didn't really put enough damage on her opponents, and that was the case tonight, but she looked better than she did in her last few fights. But really, the story of the fight was that Carly Judice was just much stronger and much better than Nicole Cagliari. She was able to defend all the takedowns. She was a lot more active on the feet. The straight punches looked fantastic. Her footwork was great as well. And she was able to outclass her in the first two rounds with mainly just the 1-2 and a couple more punches and kicks. And then the third round, she was able to finish her with a knee to the liver after hitting her with that knee a few times, but that one was a beautiful finish. She had really broken down Nicole Cagliari, and we saw a lot of toughness out of Cagliari in this fight. But fantastic performance from Carly Judice, and she's only 26, so I'm excited to see what's coming up next for her career. Moving on to the next fight, we've got Bruno Ferreira versus Jackson McVeigh. I picked Bruno Ferreira to win this by first round KO. He got it by submission, though. Early on the fight, Jackson McVeigh looked very hesitant. I thought he would as well. He was throwing some nice kicks at Bruno, but Bruno threw one leg kick and it just smashed Jackson McVeigh, and it genuinely looked like he'd never been leg kicked in his life. The reaction that he gave was not a sort of normal reaction that we'll see just from a leg kick, so I wasn't really impressed with that. And from when I saw that point, I knew that he was going to get finished in that first round, but he got the clinch straight after that, and that was his game plan. And Bruno just threw him over on top of him. It was just a complete brute strength throw on top of him, and it was really impressive. Got him straight into side control. And as soon as he got to side control, he was working submissions. He was trying to get the Kimura, and then he got a beautiful armbar. It's sort of a bad look for McVeigh because he was the grappler coming in, and he had barely a second of success. He looked really weak on the ground, which isn't a great thing. But Bruno Ferreira is a very difficult opponent, and he's a massive guy, so it sort of makes sense having difficulty with him, especially on your debut. It's a very acceptable performance, but I think he needs to maybe put on some weight or get some more sting on his shots so that he can set up his takedowns a little bit better. Moving on to the next fight, though, we've got Ryan Spann versus Lucas Brzeski. Ryan Spann making me look really good in this one. He looked great on the feet early. There was a right hand that was thrown very early in the fight. I thought that stunned Lucas. He went for the takedown. He looked really smart out there. He was actually using his head and some great fight IQ. Passed the guard instantly, started working him on the ground. Put him in a arm triangle multiple times, really threatened to that, but Lucas did a really good job getting to the fence, making sure he didn't get subbed with that. But Lucas worked his way up and got caught in the Ryan Spann standing guillotine and then finished in the guillotine position. It was a beautiful submission. I know so many people were picking Lucas Brzeski in this one, but he just doesn't have a proven success against any high-level opposition in the UFC. And I knew that Ryan Spann, even if he had to resort to the takedowns, would be able to get this one done. Moving on to the next fight, though, it was Jimmy Crute versus Marcin Prachnio. I don't know if I've been as excited for a prelim fight for a while. I'm obviously an Aussie, so I really was rooting for Jimmy Crute. He's had a rough 5 years. He hasn't got a win since he was 24, which is a ridiculous stat. And I was scared that Jimmy was going to go out there and just strike. He really looked like he was about to, but he went out there, threw some massive shot, and then just started pushing for the takedown. He went for the submission as soon as he got him to the ground. He got Prachnio down about 3 or 4 times and got up mostly until the last takedown, which was a body lock takedown. And he worked Crute straight away into the armbar, and he was really tugging on it. I was screaming in my room asking Marcin to tap for this one. I thought he was going to get a compound fracture in his arm because Jimmy was just adjusting the armbar and wrenching it further and further. But fantastic performance from Jimmy. I thought he was going to get a round 1 or round 2 submission, and I was so hyped that he got the winning streak back on it. But moving on to the next fight, though, we've got Adam Fugitt versus Islam Dulatov. Early on in the fight, Adam looked pretty good. He was getting caught a little bit coming in. He got caught twice in a row throwing kicks as well, which wasn't a really good sign thinking about it because he was getting caught coming in the whole time. And I think he just thought that Dulatov was going to push him at some point, but his whole game plan was just to sort of pick at him and counter shot him as he was coming in. Fugitt was looking for a lot of kicks on the outside. He took Dulatov's leg out. He was at one point with a nice leg kick. And Fugit was gaining confidence. He was looking pretty good. And I was even thinking just before the KO that it could go to a decision. But next moment, Fugit goes to crash in with his own strikes. And then Dulatov caught him with a really beautiful check left hook. He's really slick. And he's really quick as a striker. I thought he was going to be sort of like an aggression merchant because he hasn't shown much head movement in the past. But now I'm seeing some good range control from him. He's got some good counters. And he dropped Fugit in this fight and finished him with some ground and pound shots. He looked really improved and his counter punching looked great. Fugit, I think he's just had a bit too much time out of the cage. And I think he's just a little bit too weak for the division. I don't know what he can do with that, to be honest. Talking about someone who's weak for the division, Ateba Gautier versus Robert Valentin. Robert Valentin put out a very, very underwhelming performance. Ateba started really hard and fast. He looked really sharp. As soon as the first shot landed, though, it was basically over. Valentin started emoting at him, and he was instantly quitting. I know Gautier looks like he has nasty power, but it was literally instantly. Valentin didn't start shooting takedowns. He just started sort of edging him on to throw more punches at him, and Valentin started just covering up against the cage. He was doing an Anthony Smith. He wasn't shooting any takedowns and got no kicks on him, nothing. It seemed like he felt the power and decided that a 9-5 may be for him. I think he just started shaking his head and he was just super hurt and he just didn't try to do anything further or attempt to progress position or do anything to get out of the fight. And coming into it, I knew that Gautier was going to be a lot faster and stronger, but I thought that it would have been Valentin's idea to sort of wear him out against the cage or wear him out in the grappling, but that was just not part of his plan, and he got KO'd in the first round, TKO. It was sort of like a volume punch KO, which is weird for Ateba Gautier because he's super powerful, but he was just sort of overwhelming Robert Valentin, and he just couldn't see, he seemed to not be able to respond with anything. Moving on to the next fight, though, we've got Francisco Prado versus Nikolai Veretnikov. This was a really good fight. Veretnikov and Prado showed moments in either of them in the fight. I think either fighter could have won this, but I would have given it to Veretnikov. But early in the fight, Prado was able to get Nikolai down, and I was really concerned for my pick because I did pick Veretnikov by decision. But he made a stupid mistake and tried to jump up on Veretnikov's back when he was trying to get up. And Veretnikov was able to shake him off, getting almost triangled and almost armbarred, but he slammed Prado on his head, almost KOing him, I think. But round one was very close, but he was teeing off on him with shots to the face and body after hurting him with the slam. And then he was sort of hurting him towards the end of the round, so I would have given the first round to Veretnikov, sorry. But early round two, Veretnikov drops Prado again, and Veretnikov kept doing this throughout the fight. He just threw a spinning kick and he just got taken down with it. And Prado tried to work a head and arm triangle from half guard, but he wasn't able to succeed with that. And once they got up, Prado looked more tired out of the two, and I thought that Prado won the second round. I thought that Prado won a lot of the second round, but he didn't do enough damage to give the round away to Veretnikov. But round three, it was very similar. Prado tried to get a takedown early round three, but then wasn't able to get it. And then Veretnikov uses the spinning kick and elbow range again, gets taken down and mounted. Some really good ground and pound from Prado. And it was just a really odd fight. They were making some off decisions. The spinning kicks from Veretnikov almost lost him the fight. But he survived on the feet with Prado. Prado's pretty powerful, but he just looked way too small. And I just think that he needs to move back down to lightweight or even featherweight. He's a really small guy. Moving on to the next fight, though, we've got the fight of the night, actually, Vettori versus Allen. Basically, the first punch of the fight broke Vettori's nose. That's not me coping. I know that I picked Vettori, and I know it was a stupid decision, but I just thought he would be able to do enough, and I thought that Brendan Allen would throw the fight away, which he almost did it multiple times. But Vettori, as soon as his nose broke, he just looked a lot less durable in this fight. In the first round, it was very close. Brendan Allen was sort of winning the rounds. He was landing a lot more kicks, but it was a very close round, and he was damaging the face of Marvin Vettori. He took him down as well in the round. He ended up on bottom, though, obviously, after a back take, and Marvin was able to get some good ground and pound in the first round, but it just didn't really add up to as much damage that he took in that first round. So the first round definitely went to Brendan Allen. Round 2, Marvin was the faster starter. He landed some good boxing combinations, but then one good shot from Allen and his nose re-broke. And I think Marvin outlanded him in that round, but I think just the re-broken nose just made it look pretty bad for him, and he sort of just couldn't come back into the round and win it back convincingly enough to the judges' eyes, at least. But I thought he won that second round, but he just didn't do enough to really stamp on it. And then third round, Marvin's nose gets re-popped by the jab, and it looks like he's fighting from the behind the whole time. He's only throwing 1-2s. And Brendan Allen was just able to outpoint him. It was kind of a hard watch. I didn't think that this was fight of the night, but it was a very close third round. They were both landing a lot of shots. I thought Brendan Allen, he could have done a lot more. All he needed was a few more body and leg kicks, and he would have really put a stamp on that victory. But he let it get a bit too close for my liking. But it was a decent performance from him. Moving on to the next fight, though, we've got Vinicius Oliveira versus Kyler Phillips. This was a great fight. First round, Kyler Phillips looks as per usual. He looks absolutely on fire. He was catching Oliveira a lot because Oliveira was dipping a lot on his head movement. He sort of looked like Cruz, where he was moving side to side a bunch, and it wasn't really working out for him too much. He was dipping way too far at either side, and Phillips was able to catch him a bunch in this fight, but only really caught him off balance in the first round. Round 2, though, Phillips looked dead in the corner. He looked like he was completely done after that. And Oliveira rocked Phillips early, but Phillips engaged in the grappling. He tried to jump on the back way too early, though, and slid off the top. And then Vinicius just started pounding on him. He was absolutely beating him in that second round. He was throwing him across the cage. He got a couple of takedowns as well in that round. And he just looked a much more powerful, stronger fighter, much better cardio. And round 3 looked much the same. I think Phillips recovered a bit more in round 3. Round 3 was a bit closer. But overall, Vinicius Oliveira looked a much stronger, tougher, better fighter. And he literally leaves his hands at his waist as well. It's really, really weird style. But he uses a lot of head movement. He looked much better in those second and third rounds. And it almost looked like Phillips was in altitude. I think he's got a really bad cardio problem, and I think it's not, I don't know if it's a cardio problem or just a spinning wheel kick and hook kick problem. He gets so tired throwing 3 wheel kicks around and 3 hook kicks around that he just seems to blow through his gas tank very quickly. And Oliveira, even though he hasn't been known to have the best gas tank, he was just doing a lot more, and he was a lot stronger in those second and third rounds. He was throwing absolute bombs as well, rocking Kyler Phillips. I think he's going to do pretty well in the division. I think anyone with some power punch will be able to knock Oliveira out just because he's so off balance in a lot of the fight. But Phillips perpetually moved backwards and lost himself the fight in the third round. I thought he could have done a little bit more in that. But it was a good fight. I think it was a good performance for Oliveira to show how powerful he is, how durable, how unconventional he is. And the thing is that he's just going to be a really fun matchup for anyone that we see him put against. So it was a good performance in that aspect, but he got hit a lot. So I'm not going to pretend like a Piotr isn't going to knock him out cold. But great fight. I really enjoyed that one. Moving on to the next one, the opening of the main card, it was Michael Johnson versus Daniel Zellhuber. I'm impressed Michael Johnson was able to pull it off. In the first round, it was very close. I gave it to a slight edge. Michael Johnson was landing a good few straight left hands. Round 2 was very close again until Michael Johnson landed an even better straight left hand that would knock down Daniel Zellhuber in that round. Daniel, I thought, was really over-reliant in the body kicks in this fight. I thought that after the first round, Michael Johnson sort of got a timing on it, and he started catching Zellhuber whilst throwing those body kicks. And then round 3, it just came down to conditioning. I thought Michael Johnson was throwing a bit more. He was landing a bit more. His shots were having a bit more of an effect. And I think that also Zellhuber's boxing was just not it in this fight. I don't think that he's made the necessary adjustments. It looks like he's been over-reliant on his kicks in the gym. And I think that his boxing just didn't look powerful enough to keep Michael Johnson off you. And that's not a good sign, having a 39-year-old glass cannon Michael Johnson coming at you when you can't really hurt him. So third round was sort of close, but I still would have given the edge, maybe to Zellhuber in that one. But first 2 rounds definitely for Michael Johnson. And he had a very good fight. I thought he had a fantastic performance, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he's got next. But I was hoping Zellhuber would be a bit better in the boxing in that fight. Moving on, though, we've got Dan Ige versus Patricio Pitbull. This was not a fun fight. Round 1 was very, very even. Patricio landed like 5 leg kicks and Dan Ige whiffed on a couple of punches. And then there was some cage control time. There was nothing that happened in the first round. Second round was a lot more fun. Still like minutes, probably about 3 minutes of this fight, there was no strikes thrown. And what it was that Ige just didn't try to get going. Not didn't try, but he just couldn't get going. He would always hit on the guard of Patricio Pitbull. And the thing is that they were both just fainting at range. It was such a Bellator-looking fight. And Ige threw a couple of right hands, some head kicks, but it was just all blocked, and it was a terrible round 2 from Dan Ige. He ended up getting dropped in the round. Pitbull swarmed on him and just started teeing off on him against the cage. But then after that, he sort of just let him recover for the end of the round and got a takedown. But round 3, Dan Ige rocks him instantly in the round as Patricio Pitbull shoots in for a takedown, and Dan Ige catches him with a knee. It was beautiful. But then Dan Ige sort of lets him off the hook. He lets him recover afterwards for about a minute. And I just thought it was a bit of a disappointing performance from both. I think that Pitbull should have pressed for the finish. He should have put a stamp on the victory. Round 3 was definite Dan Ige round, but he sort of just held him against the fence. So it was like a easy round 3 for Ige, easy round 2 for Pitbull, and then neither one did anything in round 1. So really disappointed with this fight. I had a feeling it could turn out like that as well. Moving on to the next fight that was not a disappointing fight. Kevin Holland versus Daniel Rodriguez. Daniel Rodriguez was surprising everyone. I thought that Kevin Holland was everyone's lock of the card, but D-Rod wasn't taking that. He had a fantastic performance. Round 1, he was bum rushing Kevin Holland. He was looking fantastic. He was landing a lot of shots on Kevin, but Kevin was looking good. Kevin was landing a lot of kicks. He was landing a lot of stomps to legs, a lot of sort of inside low kicks as well, some jabs, some teeps as well. He was using his long-range weapons, and I thought that this was a different Holland because he wasn't speaking as much, but it turns out it wasn't different for good. Second round came along. D-Rod was looking really sharp in that round, and he dropped Holland really bad very early on, about a minute into the round, and I could just see in that round that he was just absolutely demolishing Holland. Like, I've never seen Holland that rocked in my entire life, and I don't know if anyone else has. There's not really a fight that you can point to where he gets wobbled, and D-Rod hit him, I think it was a right hook as Kevin Holland was coming in, drops him to the floor, lands some really good ground and pound. Kevin Holland sort of got himself back into the fight. But you could see as soon as he stood up, he didn't have his legs under him. And I think that was an issue throughout the rest of the fight. I don't think he's been rocked like that before, where his legs just didn't seem to come back throughout the entirety of the fight. Round 3, though, was absolutely... Sorry, I'm burping. Round 3 was absolutely crazy, though. They were absolutely slinging against each other. Holland sort of worked himself back into the fight, and then he ended up brutally dropping Rodriguez with a nice uppercut. Tribes some ground and pound, but Rodriguez got back up. He hurt D-Rod again. He was teeing off on him, but he went for a flying knee that didn't land. And then he almost got taken down by D-Rod as well in that third round, but I think he ended up on top and then slid off on the back. And then was in the position he was against Mikhail Oleksiejczuk, where he was halfway to an armbar, but D-Rod was able to pass into mount. It was an absolutely crazy fight. He started teeing off on Holland, and then Holland, using all of his energy, used the cage to spring off from mount and then get back up, but couldn't get fully up. He was so gassed up, failed a takedown on D-Rod, and D-Rod was able to ride out position for the rest of the fight, and it was a really good performance from D-Rod. Pardon me, but Kevin, I thought in this fight he looked really good in the first round, but as soon as he got rocked, you could just see that there was nothing under his legs for the rest of the fight, and he just couldn't recover and get his groove back on. In the fight, he was so close to winning it as well. The first round was very close. I think the third round definitely goes to Holland. Second round, definitely the D-Rod. But it really did just ride on that first round, and I think that D-Rod probably just did a little bit more in the boxing to win that one. Moving on to the next fight, though, the co-main event of the evening. Boy, could I not have been happier about getting a prediction wrong. Paulo Costa versus Roman Kopylov. Paulo Costa looking like the Costa of old. I saw straight away in the fight, as soon as the fight started, I could see he had the same sort of mentality because he was trying to bully Kopylov as soon as this fight started. You'll see like 4 or 5 leg kicks thrown as soon as the fight has started, and he's sort of just pushing Kopylov back, bullying him at the beginning with a lot of kicks to the body, a lot of kicks to the legs, and he kept catching Kopylov with the straight right as well. And it was such a beautiful, like, vintage Costa performance. First 2 rounds, he looked fantastic. He was pushing Kopylov back. He was catching him with body kicks and straight punches the whole time. Kopylov looked like he was a little bit hesitant in this fight. It looks like after he got hurt a few times, he just couldn't really get his rhythm. And I think that Costa did a really good job of interrupting his rhythm when Kopylov would come back into the fight. It was a really, really impressive performance. Costa was just interrupting him with teeps to the body, which we haven't seen that much in his career. Lots of body kicks. He was blasting them constantly. And he was throwing the straight right hand with tons of heat. It was such an impressive performance from Costa in this one. Third round got a little bit hairy. Kopylov was pushing a bit more, but he didn't really do too much in the third round, and I could even argue that Paulo Costa wins that third round. He was feinting his entries much better. He was barely getting caught coming in, Costa, and he was landing a lot of body punches as well in the second and third rounds. Lots of straights to the body, lots of hooks to the body, and I think he genuinely is a lot more focused coming into this fight, and I'm really excited to seeing this version of Roman Kopylov and Paulo Costa in the future. Sorry. I swear every time I go to record, I'm getting like the worst sneezes every single time. But moving on to the main event, though, we've got Max Holloway versus Dustin Poirier. This was a fantastic fight. One of the best BMF fights that we've had so far. I would say maybe the best, or at least the most competitive out of all of them. But quick recap of the fight. Max, round 1, looked really sharp. He was getting caught a few of the first exchanges, but then he caught Poirier brutally, knocked him down. But Poirier was able to get back up and recover really well. But Holloway won the rest of the round with a lot of activity with the kicks and obviously the knockdown. Round 2, though, was an absolutely insane round. It had me yelling on my seat basically the entire round. Start of the round, Max was winning the exchanges, but Poirier was sort of working into it. Body kicks were coming at Poirier, though, the whole time he was trying to enter in at range. And Holloway rocked Poirier really bad as Poirier went backwards. He teed off on him against the cage. And then Poirier shot a takedown, but Max reversed it beautifully. Got some hooks in and some beautiful ground and pound as well. Poirier really looking for the finish. He settled in after a little bit because he knew that he wasn't going to finish Poirier, but looked fantastic. Up until about a minute left to go, where I think he ended up allowing Poirier back up to his feet, and then seconds later, Poirier lands really good combinations and then starts pressing Max with 15 seconds left. He knocks Max down with a similar punch that Gaethje knocked him down with, and then goes and jumps the gilly, and he's almost in. He was in mount position, and he had that gilly locked in, but Max evaded very well, and Max started getting ground and pounded by Poirier a second later, and I thought that Max was about to get finished, but he gets saved by the bell. It was such an incredible round, probably one of the rounds of the year. Round 3, though, Poirier was pushing forward, but Max was sticking and moving. You could tell he was trying to recover a bit more. I do lean that round towards Max because of the body shots, and I had it definitely 2-1 going into the fourth. Fourth round was another close round, but I thought that Poirier was working back into it, landing the better shots, but I think the judges gave this round to Max just due to activity, but I would have given it to Poirier. He was tagging Max bad, and I think the reactions to Max getting hit were quite large, so I would have given that round to Poirier. Moving on to the third round, though, it was such a close round. They were both throwing heat. I thought it was 2-2 going into the fifth round, and it was such a close round. And coming up to about a minute left, I had Holloway up a little bit, but I thought it was very close, and Dustin definitely could take it. In the last minute, Dustin started throwing a lot harder, a lot more, and it was getting very close. It was down to the wire. Last 10 seconds, Max Holloway points to the center. They throw down. Max Holloway sort of dominated in that 10 seconds, threw a bunch of body punches, got caught with the right hook, and then Poirier started getting teed off on in that 10 seconds, had to shoot for the clinch, so Max definitely won that 10 seconds and definitely won the round, winning him the fight 48-47. It's 48-47 in my scorecards, but it was an absolutely fantastic fight. I thought that it was a great showing for Dustin in his last fight. I'm happy that Max won just to keep himself running in the division, but honestly, I wouldn't have been unhappy if he retired after that one. I thought that he did look slightly declined in this fight. I know that a lot of people won't agree with me with that, but Poirier in this one didn't look as quick as he used to be, and I didn't think that Max looked way faster than Poirier, which I thought he definitely would. And I didn't think that Max looked as durable. A lot of the shots that were landing, even just jabs, even though they were power jabs, obviously Poirier's a right-handed southpaw, but they just seemed to affect Holloway more than I thought he would. And I thought that he just didn't seem as durable when he was getting caught. He seemed to be stumbling a little bit more, getting dropped as well in that second round. Not with a massive shot either. I think, though, in the fight, the diversity of Max's strikes won in the fight. The body shots won it for him. Dustin was headhunting for quite a lot of it, and he didn't really shoot any takedowns until he was hurt. And yeah, it was just a fantastic fight. I think that Poirier definitely slower than his last few fights. I think especially since they last fought, they've both gotten a bit slower since then, but it was a fantastic performance. I'm not going to talk about how they both regressed in their careers because it was absolute war between the two of them, and I'm glad we got to see a third one, and I'm glad that Holloway didn't go 0-3 and 2 trilogies. So I'm really happy with the event. Let me know what you think of the event in the comment section below. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video as always, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.